In order to develop an A-class team, you need to entrust and empower the people below you. You have to make, you're not always going to make the right call. There will be good and bad decisions of who you trust.
Yeah.
If you try to hold on to everything, you...
Hello and welcome to the Own the Build podcast with me, Paul Hemming. We are launching a new series in 2026 featuring one exclusive interview every month with a current or former commercial director. The show will appear in your feed once a month on the last Wednesday of each month. And as I mentioned, this is an exclusive series featuring the UK's top construction and commercial professionals. The theme is spotlighting a career and a journey to commercial director, with those for those with ambitions to reach the position, and also to spotlight to other directors what world-class leadership looks like in 2026. And on that note, I am delighted to welcome our second guest, Christopher Hartley, who was a former commercial director at McLaren, at Paragon, and turned kind of quantum expert, business change consultant. You do too many things for me to keep up with, Chris. But welcome to the show, mate. Good to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
And like I say, there's a plethora of things that you do, right? And I didn't even list out there managing director of Aylesford.
Always Rugby Club.
Yeah, which we've just spent a lot of time talking about in the cafe, which sounds like it takes up a lot of your time as well.
Yeah, all the time that I don't have.
It's spent on rugby, right? Which is a good place to spend it.
Absolutely.
But I've tried to frame, and probably done quite a bad job there, your construction career, that the latter end of it, let's say. Just paint the picture over a couple of minutes, if you can, from how you arrived into construction to where you are today.
Well, okay. Probably started back in work experience days at school. My next door neighbour of the time, he was a structural and civil engineer at a local practice, and I needed some work experience. So my dad asked him, and I spent 2 weeks at a company called Evanston Lamford in Maidstone. Okay. Mainly doing structural and civil engineering type exercises. But coming out of that 2 weeks, it sort of gave me an appreciation of, I think I want to get into construction.
Really?
Yeah, I really enjoyed being out in the field, in the office, that sort of thing. So started looking at, I'd already probably left it too late to do anything at school, to be honest. I wasn't the best, but that's probably not the best endorsement. I've been very lucky to get around that issue.
Well, you weren't very academic,
I wasn't particularly interested.
It was an interest
It
issue.
was, I think it was, to be honest, my education peaked when I went to college, where I think it was how you were treated more than...
Okay.
So you were treated as an adult as opposed to a school child. Anyway, that probably says a lot about me wanting to be at the front of things and lead other people. So I then chose college, and I did a general sort of building, I think it was called it was an ND, National Diploma in Construction, then a HNC, and then at that point sort of narrowed down my interest in quantity surveying. Still to this day, I don't know why I chose quantity surveying. Yeah. I think it was a numbers thing, to be honest. I enjoyed numbers, which is what quantity surveying was perceived to be back then.
Counting bricks,
which it very much isn't today. But I'm sure we'll come on to that. Then off to college. I did mine part-time, so I ended up getting a couple of jobs. First one was with a PQS practice in London. Again, I'm very lucky. It was through relationships rather than, the door was opened through a relationship that my parents held, so I had to go up and interview and all that sort of stuff. Small boutique QS practice that were dealing with a lot of sort of fit out and in the retail and entertainment and hospitality sector. And it was around the time of the millennium, just a few years before then, but a lot of the millennium projects. So I was quite lucky. My CV at the early days has things like the Millennium Dome as it was then. There was
start as you mean to go on, Chris.
Exactly, some real pinnacle jobs as they were at the time. And then I got told by one of the directors of the PQS practice, if you want to be, and this may be controversial, so if you want to learn to be a good QS or good PQS, you need to go and work for a contractor. Yes, come on. To find out all of the little tricks of the trade and all that sort of thing. So that whole poacher term gamekeeper type scenario. So at that point, I did go out interviewing and got a job at McLaren Construction, as it was at the time, before they, unfortunately, their demise. And then it was from that point on, I never went back particularly into client QSing and stayed in contracting. And when Burst went under, I then, quite a bold step, I suppose, at the time. I'd progressed to a sort of surveyor, project surveyor level in that period quite quickly. Burst went under, and the senior QS I was working for was a consultant at the time. And he said, come over, work, I'll make you a director. I was 23, I think.
As a consultant?
As a consultant, he said, and he is probably the guy, Tim Mack, I'll say his name, because he's someone that taught me how to do things properly, the detail, those sort of things. Yeah. Anyway, then in that consultant role, I ended up working at McLaren as a consultant. And then that's where the journey really started, I suppose, to progressing through the different layers of QSing.
Was there... I mean, there's a lot of things that I want to ask you just up to this point. Yeah. First one is, so 200 plus interviewees on this show. And I always reflect how I ended up being a QS, right? Which was, I just didn't want to go to uni. I wanted to be paid to go through uni. And trainee quantity surveyor in the Stratford-upon-Avon Observer paper. And I applied for it, and here we are. Yeah. And my mate saying to me, don't do that, you'll be counting bricks for the rest of your life. Because I said to him, what is it?
Yeah.
But the majority of the people that I interview on this show either fell into it or there is some family lineage into construction. I've never heard, it's the first time I've heard, my neighbour was in construction, and that's what roped me in. So
my dad was in a completely owned his own business in the newsprint paper world, so completely different. Yeah. And it was I need work experience. Ray next door works, go and do it. I can get you something.
And then you kind of found yourself in construction and enjoyed it.
Yeah, and interestingly, to this day, one of the directors at Evans Langford, Simon Robinson, I still am in contact with.
Really? From that very first...
and he wasn't a director obviously at the time, but he was there and has been there for that whole period. So yeah, we're still in contact in the industry.
And so you're in your 20s, you're a contractor into McLaren.
Yeah.
At that point, McLaren is a relatively young business.
Yeah, I'll say probably that would have been 2000 and time-wise, probably 2004, I think.
Okay.
And I believe they were around about 50. I'll say a £50 million turnover business.
And a few years, is that right? A handful of years.
And they've been around for 2000. So they've just had their 25th. So 2000. So it was 3-4 years into their journey.
Okay, and so from there to today, what are the steps?
So in terms of career path, putting to one side my switching between, because I have been directly employed by McLaren and back to consultant. So let's put that to one side. But I probably progressed through the steps of surveying. So surveyor, project surveyor, senior surveyor, managing surveyor. In fact, I did all of that in relative order as a sort of a freelance to McLaren. They gave me that opportunity to lead some teams at the time. And I think it was, I was even commercial manager at one point, overseeing various... As a freelancer.
Really?
And I suppose that came from a level of trust that's built up where you are close to, in that smaller business, you're close to the leaders. There's the trust. They understand what you can and can't do. Yeah. And to be honest, this sounds a little bit... I've never been one to put myself in front of others. So my decisions were always based on what's best for...
The group and the company.
The project.
Always?
Always. Even today, to be honest with you, my wife will say you put others first too often. But that's just...
But in some ways, so like through this leadership series where we're talking to lots of people, a lot of people reflect on a Tim Mack, did you say? Someone who has like this big impact on your career, right? And then you will say, I got a bit lucky here and I got a bit lucky there, I got given this opportunity. But and there's always luck to everyone's journey, right? Yeah. But in some cases, like luck is earned, right? Through like people trust you. So like another freelance QS or senior surveyor, blah, 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 commercial manager, they would have thought, don't quite
Yeah.
Trust, like there would be, but clearly you built that trust. So how do you get to that point? Do you build that trust because you were always putting the company first, or that was the perception? Like, what's your view on that?
I think everything ultimately comes down to what you do, how you perform. And going back briefly to Tim, one thing that he taught, or more than one thing, but the main thing that I took from time with Tim was, and it's something that I would encourage any young surveyor today, is to focus on the detail. You have to understand the best you can, the level of detail, so you know, ultimately, so you do your best to know more than the person you're in a conversation with. Because that puts you at an advantage. And he would never shortcut. It was always doing it the right way, so that you could, if someone questioned what you'd done, you could take them right back to the very beginning and say, that's how I started.
This is my audit trail, basically.
No one can argue with that. Even if it's slightly wrong, you've still got that.
It's really
detail.
interesting, because that's exactly what I've talked about it quite a lot. So I went into a £20 million subby, and the commercial team was commercial director, managing QS, senior surveyor, trainee QS on 10 grand a year or whatever I was on. Right? It was piddly, but I joined this team where I had 3 amazing kind of mentors around me, and 10 years later, when I was like running Batsy and blah blah blah, I had this thing about my team. Every variation, like every meeting, you're going to go in there more prepared than the other side.
Exactly.
Like, it's just going to be, I want a narrative about each variation, I want a pack, blah, 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 blah. And so that almost like the other side just think, we just can't be bothered to have a fight with these guys, right? We'll just,
and on this, in the same vein as that, again, Tim, was when I say the detail, it wasn't just the understanding, it was the attention to detail. So it was, if there's a spelling mistake, there shouldn't be a spelling mistake.
Absolutely.
If there's we all love Excel or surveyors of old, and maybe today.
No, they still do.
They still do, but I know we're on a different journey. But, if there's a border not in place, that gives people,
a different perception.
I
agree.
If it's clean and it's right, people, straight away, you're talking the word trust, they trust that document because it's been well prepared.
And so Tim laid the foundations for kind of you as a surveyor. Right? So gave you that detail, which sounds similar to my managing QS. It's just do the detail, and then personality, relationships, that all comes into it at a later stage, right? Yeah. So you do that, you're impressing at McLaren. We won't go into your contractual situation. We're going in great detail, but do you end up going full time with McLaren and then?
Yeah. So effectively, and again, I would say one other person bringing McLaren to it is of a similar ilk is Maurice Archer, who is now Group Strategic Director at McLaren. Okay. At the time was Group Commercial Director, and he was of a very similar mentality. You've got to be right, got to be the detail.
This is why, as a subby, I always had to be right, because you guys were busy doing that.
and that was the other thing. So I will come back to the question, but it was that whole thing of, as a subcontracting surveyor, you have a specialism and you can focus on that. But as a main contracting surveyor, one of the things I would say to surveyors of today is you need to try and know as much as you can about every subject. You're not going to know it all, but you need to put yourself in a place where your knowledge base around your packages is not too far behind the specialist surveyor you're dealing with.
That's hard though, isn't it? That is
hard. But
would your advice be to kind of, because as a cladding facades expert, I'm walking into that meeting with you thinking you don't know as much about the technical aspects of this. To be honest with you, I wasn't that technical myself, but even then we just would have that knowledge more than the other side, which is an advantage, of course. But as a how do you do it? Because you could be on a job with 80 packages, or you could be on there's 10. You could say, I'm going to be an expert in facades, for instance, or because M&E in itself is
the dark art, as they call it. But again, I would say understanding construction at a basic level of how things go together and how things interact.
Spend time on site.
That allows you see it happening, see it being built correctly. Understand from your operational colleagues. Work with them to understand what isn't right, so that you understand what good and bad looks like as one. But with that specialism of knowing everything. It's just knowing enough to ask the right questions to draw out an answer to something you need to know. And give you that awareness of, I know enough to know, is that right? Or am I having, well, this, not to get too old school surveyor, but or am I having the wool pulled over my eyes a little bit? But just knowing enough to be able to question that.
There is absolutely something in that, right? Because certainly as a sub EQS now, you would, and it would happen to us for a while. Like when I was a trainee, I was getting the wool pulled over my eyes by a main contractor who knew much more than I did, right? But over time, you do kind of approach it. And if I go back to me prepping that variation, I'm going to prep all these variations. I'm going to be technical. My borders will be right. There'll be no spelling. It'll be perfect. You do kind of go into those meetings thinking, well, if we have to, we'll drag them to an uncomfortable place where there's a lack of knowledge. And where there's a lack of knowledge, naturally, like the walls come down a little bit, right? So I can completely empathise with like that's where you've got to be, because that would kind of in some ways be our strategy. So that would be my thing. And going to that whole, back to your original question around the journey, I suppose, progressing through those steps within McLaren, and that building that trust was from demonstrating that I was good at my job, which was both in terms of protecting McLaren's position. Obviously, this is not a dirty word, making reasonable profits on projects is always a good indicator. That, right? There's some.
I mean, that's not all one person. We all know it's not a one person job. That's from estimating through to delivery, through to how we work as a team. And I was lucky enough to work with some. McLaren was a young business, and it had young people in the business. So it had a good balance of, with those young individuals, some good seasoned heads of how things were delivered and properly, but also enough where a more modern way of thinking, a more open way of thinking was encouraged.
Was it exciting as well in that you could, it was, because I mean, if you say it's 25 years now, 25 years in McLaren, it's now $1 billion plus. Billion plus. It's kind of a global business. It's a behemoth, right? It's top 15, top 20.
Tier 1,
exactly. And, but like, so did you look at that as a young professional who was kind of climbing the ladder, let's call it, even if you had your own kind of freelancing business? Did you look at that and think, this is the place I want to be? This is a great place. It's exciting. I can build my career here and I can make an impact.
100%. And that came down to that close contact between the owners of the business and the senior management, so Kevin and Phil and then Maurice. You had, as a project lead, commercial lead, you had direct contact. There was no middle management. You were kind of like
reporting to the
Kevin and Phil in those early days would come to your monthly forecast meetings. So you were reporting directly to the business owners. So they saw that, and that's, again, you talked about building that trust, they see it firsthand. And then that business was always going to grow, as it has. And if you're in that initial group and that trust is there, then that willingness to bring invest in your career was there as well. So it wasn't a case of, you're too young, which is a big thing. It was like, you can do your job and we know you can do this next step, so you're going to do it.
And so you're 20 in your mid-20s at that point. How long do you stay at McLaren? Even forget the freelance or employed bit, just how long are you there making that impression, building that trust? I've been in and out of the business, as we said, different roles, but I stayed so ignoring the contractual arrangements, as you said, 2004, I think I then left for what we call a very short period. Left working at McLaren in 2017. So that whole window was the journey from probably Project QS, I think 2013, bit fuzzy some of the dates, but 2013 was when I had to make the decision, or was asked to make the decision around, you need to become on the books direct because your next step is commercial director. And so I think... How did that feel? Because you've been a freelancer for so long, which has all of the benefits. Right. Well, those benefits, as we know, have dwindled, diminished over the years. They were still all right back then, though, right? They were still all right back then. I could go into a whole story around why that decision was made. But, actually, it comes back to the point you raised of, did I want to be within McLaren? I love being there, and I still love working with the business. But I think
Kevin and Morris and those guys had been very open and willing to allow me to be freelance at probably levels of management that others wouldn't have been so comfortable. And at that point, maybe that just got a bit too... The business split...
You can understand why.
The business split regionally, because at that point, up to around that period of time, McLaren was one entity, which it still is, but that it was split into regionalisation. And that was a bit of a call around... what region are you going to work in? Because I was working in London. Well, I was working across London and the south at the time. And then, so I think that was I think perhaps now you need to make a call if you're going to be a commercial director.
If you want to do it, then you'll have to give that up. And so from there, from McLaren, commercial directorship, again, another question I ask a lot is, at any point, were you given formal leadership training? Forget about the jump to commercial director, but you got wind back to your mid-20s and you were all of a sudden running a team anyway. Because I was running a team and basically just like, you're a good surveyor, manage the surveyors. It's kind of the rite of passage. But
no, I wasn't. There was no formal leadership training. I think that came from having an understanding of what good and bad looks like as a person. How are you treated? Yeah. How do I want to be treated? And then if someone's
picking the best bits,
the best bits of how other people treat you as managers, and going, I'm going to try and blend those things together. Yeah, there was no sort of
formal structure to
A to B to C to D. This is what a leader looks like.
Yeah, it's funny though, isn't it? Like if you think about, an industry maligned for poor margin and program performance. Yeah, and then you think about. This is anecdotal sample of I've done 200 odd interviews, right? Yeah. And I know what my own experience was, which was the same. I did the same thing as you. That's what I hear from everyone. And there are some amazing leaders in construction, right? And I'm sure you were really good. But would there be, if there was some elevated leadership program kind of ingrained in construction in the way you have in the army, right? I say that because I interviewed an army leadership expert. Yeah. What impact would that have on the businesses, on the projects, on the programs? Because I know from myself, I remember thinking all of a sudden I was 25, I was managing 40-year-olds. I remember thinking, how do I do this? Yeah. And it's much easier managing the 21-year-old than the. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
I suppose that's always managing people of a more senior age than you, and perhaps in certain instances more experience of time in the industry was a big challenge. But I'm ready to say now, we talked about how McLaren have evolved. They now have a leadership program, they're a tier one.
Yeah,
they've got a proper leadership.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's different now than it was along my journey. But how would that, if there had been full leadership training, would that have made a difference? I don't.
Do you think you'd have wanted it at that time?
To be honest, no. Because yes and no. It's a difficult one because I would have wanted it because I'm naturally I'm someone that's never closed off to learning. So I like to sometimes to detriment try and, as I said, know bits about everything. So I would have always said, actually, I can always take something away from training. There's always something you don't know that you will learn. But would I have asked for it? I don't know. I probably would have been pushed into it a little bit. Yeah. Because one of the things I still enjoy is surveying at its base level, the first principles, the measure.
Do you really? Yeah, actually, I don't know why I ask. I know from speaking to you that you
I suppose
you're a sad man like me.
It is, and it's a release. It's a release from, when you are managing people, that whole leadership journey does go from doing, as we know,
and
to manage from the detail, to a sort of semi. You do and you're managing to. The further up the chain, the further away from the actual original base.
So you like the release of actually, I'll go and work on that variation with you and help you with it and understand it and feel like, da-da, we've done it.
Exactly.
It is like a winding path, isn't it? I mean, there we go.
Jokingly, we don't even measure and colour up. We used to have colouring Friday after.
I used to like the colouring Friday.
Mark up a drawing and do a bit of measure just to realign. I think it's how my brain works. I like to plan. I'm okay at dealing with variables, but if I can try and keep things as linear as possible. There's a focus.
And there's an ending to that work, right? You can finish it.
Yeah, and you go, I've done something, I've got to the end, and it's realigned my mindset, and I'm back to,
So something I hear and see a lot is kind of like a bit of a rush to get to a certain level in the psyche of maybe the 20-somethings today. That's a sweeping generalization, but that, want to get to commercial manager, want it to managing QS, then blah, 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 blah. Just 2 questions for you on that. One being around, you spent 13 years at McLaren.
Yeah.
You didn't bounce around too much.
No.
You focused on a business. You saw the opportunity within that business. You thought, this is the one I'm going to choose. So I want to ask you, like, your opinion on the jumping around in the earlier stages of your career. And then 2, something that you said earlier was you have to, I think it was Tim who focused you in on the detail.
Yeah.
And you've got to get good at the detail, because by the time you're at commercial director, you're not doing the detail, but you've got to be able to do it. So it's almost like the time. I guess my point here being, there's an energy to progress your career as quickly as possible for everyone, right? But maybe that energy is accelerated in the psyche of the younger surveyors today. Should you stick it out at the right business to get that acceleration, and should you, and like this is all very leading questions, but like you need to serve your time on the detail, right?
And I think that's where you've got to find the right business that you can strike that balance within. I mean, I was fortunate within McLaren that they were a growing business, so that opportunity is different if you're in an established business with an established hierarchy structure and people filling all the gaps in, but as it were, in the chain. But coming right back, you have to balance. You do have to know construction.
Yeah.
You can't, because once you get to you need to be able to, in my view, if you're going to be a good leader, you need to be able to, at any point in time, drop down to any level between where you started and where you are now and fill in a gap and be comfortable that you can go in with another senior surveyor and, for whatever, be equal to what they're doing on a day. So you have to be able to do everyone's job.
Yeah, and it's actually quite difficult to delegate out of the...
Well, you can't. Ultimately, you can say, I've got 10 scenes, 30 senior surveyors, but you're still the person responsible for their outputs.
What was the biggest team that you were managing?
It was probably commercial director at McLaren London, I think 50 to 60 surveyors.
Yeah. And so what does kind of...
I think that's even bigger now. I think London's about 100 now.
In our team, our direct team, I guess it's it's like 40. And that feels to me like a chunk of work. And it's a lot, right? Yeah. And you're kind of relying on a lot of people to help you manage that. Just how do you build like an A-star commercial team when it's 50?
Oh, that's a good question. You look for, in a slightly megalomatic way, you look at someone that reflects yourself. I'd managed to get to where I'd got to. So if I see someone that's of similar nature, understands the detail, good positive attitude, you always look for those people with drive, because we all know be
your leaders.
Yeah, because you know almost. It's easier to hold someone back slightly at the right time than it is to keep pushing someone to do more. But you have to, it's trust. It comes right back to how you said, how do I build that trust with the McLaren? That's the same at every level. You have to trust people below you. That trust has to be given and earned. So you can't, I think in order to develop an A-class team, you need to entrust and empower the people below you. You have to you're not always going to make the right call. There will be good and bad decisions of who you trust. Yeah. But if you try to hold on to everything, you haven't got a team, you've got a dictatorship. Yeah. But that transition from doing the day-to-day, you can't do everything. So you have to trust. You have to trust someone. And then it's, as a leader, it's understanding, and part of the developing as a leader is, how do I allow those individuals to do what I want them to do, give them enough space, but still have a close enough understanding of what's happening so that as a leader, I can step in when I need to and help them or stop them making what could be a mistake. But actually making mistakes, as we all know, is good learning. Sometimes
just
as a
not
leader,
on my projects or on my margin, please.
Well, to be honest, I think that's part of leadership growth is understanding when you can allow someone to make a mistake.
What do you mean?
So let's talk about that. You know that they're heading down a path, procuring a package, and it may be that decision is going to be silly numbers. It's going to be difference between £1,000 profit and a £500 profit on a £10 million job.
So kind of academic.
But you can use that value of that loss to make that allow that person to learn. So if you'd done it this way, that would be double the profit. But it's not hurt anyone particularly. That £500, whilst it's a loss on the bottom line, has a value because it's someone's hopefully learnt from that. And next time that £500 and £1,000 could be 10,000 and 100,000, and it's going the right way. So I think empowering and trusting, but having the right tools to allow you to still monitor and support. And
you kind of talked about trying to. So you're managing a team of 50. I guess within that there's say 5 key people that I
had 4 commercial managers at the time, and below them there were a layer of managing surveyors that were either overseeing a couple of jobs or a resident on a larger scheme. So there was that sort of management structure.
And so you were really focused on probably the 4 commercial managers that you were, and then it kind of tiered down. When you said I was looking for characters similar to myself or with traits similar to myself, right? What were those traits?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but for me, it's purely, there's 3 things. Knowing the detail. Someone that when I ask them a question, it's not, I think I briefly look, it's I've
variations
done this,
There's
the answer. Someone that works well as a commercial individual, someone that works well with their rest of the construction team, operational, design, etc. One of the best things I think that seems to be happening in the industry and needs to be encouraged is that collaboration, the more openness of sharing the financial impact of decision making. Whereas old school, it was surveyors keep all the numbers to yourself, don't share anything because people will just diminish the margin or whatever. For a nice way of saying it. But I think again that's part of the empowering. If you're empowering the rest of the team to understand the impact of their decision making, they will see the benefits of, actually, I'm going to think about that decision because I'm not just going to go and get, I've got to use an old school 100 labourers to tidy up. I'm going to do something different. So those traits of a surveyor or a commercial person that's very good at working with their operational and delivery team as part of that team and not a hindrance to it, but someone that's still able to stand up and, for want of a better phrase, I can't think of one, hold other people to account. No, you don't make that decision yet. Let's talk about it because that's going to have this impact. So
it's quite difficult at times for, maybe this is my own personal reflection, but for a surveyor to have the personality to put the brakes on operations, because there is a bit of, do you see when I say the brake, do you know what I mean? Like to say no, because it's kind of big brother, little brother, surveyors have been the surveyors. Do you know what I mean?
It is, but that comes back to my underlying thing of, if as a surveyor, if you know how things are built, and you know how things go together, and you know what good and bad looks like,
and you've walked the site with these operations people,
but you can have an active conversation with that operational colleague that isn't just no stop because I'm the surveyor and it's going to cost money. You can go beyond that and explain your reasoning as to why. Hang on, let's just take 5 and think about it, because you can.
It's relationships as well, right? And so we talk about, and it's a bit of a broken record. It sounds a bit boring. It's not very glamorous. Go walk the site with, but when you're a young surveyor, quite often you'll be walking the site with a senior PM or a younger PM.
Yeah,
and that younger PM, in 5 years' time, is going to be a senior PM. You're going to be a senior QS. You kind of
build those.
And then all of a sudden, when So let's imagine that commercial manager you were talking about there in your mind. You're picturing someone who's...
I know exactly who it is.
Exactly. Who's got all these relationships. That's probably the same QS, project surveyor, who was busy on site, going around site with the project managers and blah, blah, blah.
Not sat behind his desk.
Exactly. Or working from home or whatever, right? Yeah. Who then 5 years later, you as commercial director, thinking about that commercial manager and thinking, but they'll get it sorted with so-and-so on site. I trust them. They've got the relationships. How have they got? How do you know that they've got the relationships? Because they've built them. Yeah, you've built them,
and you've seen it in action. That's the other thing. You can see it as, and if as a leader you suddenly become isolated and become office bound, then you lose that connection as well between you don't see how your team, because they are those 50 surveyors are all your team. You don't see how they're operating. That's a big thing that I was helped with when I did become commercial director by the managing director that I was working alongside. Was we need to get out on site. We can't be sat in the office. So there was a concerted effort. Obviously, within McLaren there are on-site monthly forecasts meetings that are attended by regional leadership, and that still happens today. But that was a good way of staying connected to each site, and that's an expectation that's been set from the very beginning. And then still expected today within McLaren is that those regional leadership will be going to sites and seeing.
It's obvious why.
It becomes harder and harder because the business is growing.
Yeah.
But if you do that and then you build those relationships and that trust with those commercial managers, operations directors as team units, then you can continue that. Whilst you're taking a further step away from the coal face, as it were, you still know that the team below are trusted and they're doing the same thing that you did.
Yeah.
So that they're not doing it, they're not guessing, they've seen it.
I mean, the cold hard realities of commercial directorship is there isn't really an easy path to it, right? That you've got to grind it out. Yeah. And everyone who's got to that position is usually a person like with charisma and character, right, to be able to manage it's a bit like a sports team, right? You got sports man, you got to manage the board, you got to manage the fans, you got to manage the players. So you got to manage the subbies, you got to manage your board, you got to manage your team, and you've got to have some depth of character to do that, but also you've got to have depth of knowledge and expertise. There's no getting around that.
And I think coming back to that original question is the balance between that desire to get through your career quickly and be at the highest point you can be as quickly as possible. What I would say is if you don't grind out, like you say, and you don't build that knowledge base and you rush through building those relationships, when you get to that level, unfortunately, my opinion is that you get found out quite quickly once you get there. And that can sometimes have quite a detrimental effect on how your career from that point on looks like, because that's when you end up
step back,
or dare I say it, there are people in the industry, you see them turn up every 2 or 3 years in a different company. There's reasons for that. I won't go. There's a perception, there's a reason that why is someone moving all 2 or 3 years? Is that because each job they do or whatever is a 2-year job and suddenly something it's there, it's an underlying,
it's an industry where you get found out quite easily, isn't it?
Yeah. So do the hard work, understand construction, work as a team, be as open as you can be, give and empower at every level. Empowerment of people starts at every level, and that's by sharing good information and building and earning trust. And you have to. I suppose the challenging thing on jobs is that you have to do that on if you don't keep
start
teams
fresh
together,
again.
You have to start again with another team on another job.
Welcome to being a subby, mate. I had to do it 15 times a year.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just fast forward me now, because this conversation, as expected, is we've got we haven't even got past McLaren yet.
No.
On my first question, but this is good. But just fast forward me now, because you're no longer a commercial director. What are you today? Because you seem to be a lot of things. A busy, tired man.
Yeah, well, my children come home. They're not children so much anymore, but they used to come home and go, we've been
What
asked what you do. What do you do? And that's like hard to describe. But so I'm going to have to make reference back to McLaren. So I did have a short period away, as you mentioned. I went to Interserve Paragon for a couple of years as commercial director for a refurb arm, which didn't pan out, as Interserve had their difficulties and so on. But what that strangely did do is I ended up back at McLaren as a consultant, but working directly sort of with the board around preparing McLaren in a way for the growth they've been through. So I went back in 2019 and I had a very broad remit at the time, which was to go around the business and just identify opportunities to improve margin, and that was how we operate in what we're doing. And it ended up looking at turning into sort of almost like a bit of a business change exercise. What do we need to do differently?
What were the things that you could do to improve margin?
A lot of it actually came down to the things that happen around the projects. So you've got the practical bits of, do things, price things correctly, be robust, all of those sort of things. Biggest thing was actually trying to break down what were, and to a lesser degree today, were the historical boundaries of siloed discipline approach to things. I'm a commercial person. I only do this. I'm an ops person. All I've got to do is deliver the job.
Yeah.
It was, how do we bring those teams together better?
Yeah.
Both in terms of explaining and giving each person an understanding of how they interact with each other, how something one person does impacts another person, so that empathy around different roles. To actually,
did you manage to get operational people to be empathetic to QSs? Is that a possible?
I could comment on that. I think,
or vice versa.
Oh, vice versa, but also the environment, the site environment, encouraging people to work more collaboratively rather than creating an environment where they could be siloed. So basic stuff in a way. Some of it was really simple fixes. Individual, cabins, as we have the old hot boxes split in two. You've got your commercial person in one room, your ops person in another. Open it all up. Get your package teams working together. Get your commercial lead, design lead, and ops lead and project leaders. We're all in the same
desk
location, and just encourage that sharing of information. And there were some more practical things as well. There's some processy bits and improvements on that side of it. But so that happened, and then obviously we've all been through COVID, and certain things that sort of fell away to a certain degree as something formal. But over the period from 19 to now, and under the new leadership and the existing long-term leaders, it's sort of bits of what we all highlighted back then have been implemented, and it's, well, I'm not saying it's not by far the sole reason, but it's been part of that journey of developing McLaren and improving its position as it is today. And your remit in the role with McLaren is improve the margin, or improve the process, or business change? Well, ultimately, nothing happens. This is the biggest message. Nothing happens without margin. You can't invest in anything. So if you're not making money, you can't invest in your people. It becomes a vicious circle. But someone has to invest at the right point to start that journey off. And for me, investment in people is that first thing, because no business operates without its people. And it's good people. And so what's your vision, if you like, for the commercial function in the next few years? Like how is that landscape changing? The biggest good decisions are made off good information. So if we can improve the quality and transparency of information, everyone's better off. Then that allows leaders at every level to make the right decisions. Or if they're not making the right decisions, it's not because the information's bad, it's because it's just the wrong decision. So you narrow down the areas of failing effectively. You spoke earlier about the generational thing, and it is a broken record. I think, unfortunately, there's been a period of surveying where the focus has shifted too far in the direction of process and management of that process.
Okay.
Process is important, absolutely important. But but actually the simplicity of a process is where you get the best out of a best balance. No process, complete carnage.
Yeah.
Too much process,
Bureaucracy,
everyone time spent bureaucracy, time's lost, etc. That balance of the middle ground to allow surveyors, modern surveyors, or I'm going to say modern commercial managers, because the whole thing around quantity surveying is it's bit of an industry. Yeah. Well, it needs to go because we're not brick counters, we are commercial contractual managers.
Yeah.
You know, is that focus needs to switch, or not switch, but come back more towards commercial acumen, commercial activity. Our job is to improve, is to avoid risks, and where we can, take opportunities when they arise, maintain the commercial outcome of the job, which in turn is delivering the job on time and all of those. So it's all so interconnected, but giving surveyors back the time to use their commercial acumen rather than to do that, rather than having to spend so much time on the administration of a process.
And is that a board level objective at McLaren, to unlock QS time or commercial professionals time?
Yes, absolutely, because part of the journey that we've been on with the digitalisation at McLaren is exactly that. It's appreciated that the business has evolved beyond what its traditional, Excel reporting, collating all documents together. There's too much time spent reporting, and in some instances reporting not with the right level of accuracy because of the different issues that we have with Excel, but disconnect between information and human
error. Especially when you've got projects, regions, group. Like you've just got so many different tiers of potential non-standardization errors, blah blah blah, to filter into the top.
Along with the inevitable, if you're having to transpose information across and all those, human error happens. But it's to make that, again, it's to make the quality of the base data richer, so that the decision making around how you report against that base data is where your focus is. It's not in gathering that bit, because that's done from a trusted source, which again comes back to using commercial acumen. You're then not adding up. You're taking what's been added up and saying, right, how does that look? Is that right?
What are the risks?
What can I do to affect it? And then you're reporting that. So it very much a group thing to try and refocus, or allow the I keep saying refocus, but to allow the commercial teams to deliver commercial outputs rather than process. That is, that's led current group commercial director Paul Spiller. That is part of why we're on the journey. It was something that was discussed probably a couple of years ago now. We're on, and we're still pushing our way through that journey. But it is all about maintaining and improving margin to allow the business to continue to reinvest and create a positive circle of events rather than...
And where... Let's talk about procurement briefly. I'm a sucker for it, as you know.
Yeah.
You quite like it as well.
Well, it's where if you get the procurement wrong, the whole thing's...
Yeah, I mean, what is it? 90% is tied up, 90% of a main contractor's cost or whatever is tied up in the procurement. Just talk to me about the process of procurement currently versus how you want it to be, or how it should be.
How it should be. Again, I suppose the process isn't wrong.
Yeah.
Perhaps the tools are wrong. I think, again, the historical reliance on that.
You don't like Excel, do you?
Well, I'm a surveyor, of course I like it. I prefer it to Word, who doesn't? But
low bar.
Yeah, but the procurement process, I don't think I'm doing a disservice when I say it's pretty the same wherever you go. There might be different approval processes and forms and stuff like that, but the actual procurement steps
pretty linear. It's a workflow.
the same. I think again it's in the same way as we want to improve the commercial function away from admin. It's the same in procurement. If a surveyor can have more time understanding the detail, getting the scope right, understanding the scope to a level where they can look at where the opportunities and where the risks lie, manage those out early. So they're so they're more in control. It's main contractor and not so heavily reliant on what they're being told by the subcontractors.
Oh, come on.
No. But I will say this: everyone needs to make money. Yeah. There's no issue because otherwise the world stops turning. So but it's just trying to get everyone on that level playing field of understanding. So again, procurement, if we can give back the time and through that procurement process to allow the surveyors to be surveyors and not administrators, then that's a win.
And is that through so we talk about that linear workflow, right, where you're creating a tender pack, you're getting approval on your procurement schedule, I don't know, you're receiving your price, you're going through tender addendums, tender recommendation, blah, blah, blah. Is it something that McLaren has identified as that is where we're losing valuable QS time through admin? All those steps are really important, but you go around the regions in 2019 and you say, we want to unlock margin. Did the QSs say, I'm wasting loads of time stood by a printer or whatever?
Do you know what? Interestingly, the procurement piece wasn't necessarily led by the time.
Okay.
That was led by a business risk. And I don't know what it's like at other contracting business. I'm sure it's not dissimilar, but up till recently, McLaren would still be in that world of printing a subcontract order, scanning it in, sending out a hard copy for execution. Yeah. It'd go off to a subbie's desk, sit there for however long, come back into McLaren, or come back into McLaren, then have to go off to the regional office for signing.
6 months later.
6 months, and the subcontractor's already on site.
Unfortunately,
something's already occurred, and we're all... So it's actually
insanity, isn't it? Yeah, it's just insanity. It is. £1 billion company, right? And you asked, does it happen at other companies? I've told this story many times. I was in a top 10 contractor, and we were there with a director, an associate director, who said, yesterday I spent 4 hours by the printer printing and scanning the scene, and that guy must have been on 6 figures, and that's how they were operating. You think, what?
Yeah.
So it is the norm.
So it is the norm, and that was that drive around procurement and looking at procurement as the first step was to reduce the time, to give time back, but also the business saw that as one of its areas of risk, because we were, our percentage of having subcontractors in contract was varied across the business because of that manual sending it, and funnily enough, it also came in from a sustainability perspective. We'd actually did a high level desktop with the sustainability team at McLaren, and they were like, so how many orders do you do on a job? How many pages are the orders? And we're like, well, I can't, it was 2 years ago, but we were into, hundreds of thousands of pounds of pages of paper. Yeah. And it's like, what are we doing?
And it's kind of like...
As well as all the time of administrating that very laborious manual process. And storing it. Yeah. So,
And so your vision for procurement in, say, 3 to 5 years, if we're coming from a place where there's lots of manual work done on Word and Excel, and we have been sending out paper contracts. I know DocuSign and everything has changed things quite a bit, but we're coming from that place, because I've spoken to you about this, and you're quite forward thinking in how you see it in a few years' time. Where would you want, what do you want QSs doing, or commercial people doing? Yeah. You definitely don't want them called QSs, do you? Sorry, I'll remember that. But in 3 to 5 years, you're unlocking their time, how?
By effectively automating most of the production. So, of the procurement, of the documentation around procurement, their time needs to be put into the thinking time of getting the content right, not the generation of the document. So if there is a, basically anything that requires a QS to press print, let's say, doesn't need to happen.
Yeah.
It's done. All they've got to do is say, this is what I want, and I want it because of X, Y, and Z. This is the right scope. This is the right document.
And I've pulled it from the stock library.
I've pulled it from our central locate base from a project level. The information's all managed. It's the right information because that's from a central source. The document library is the right. The subcontract or the tender inquiry is the right form, so that the business is managing its risk.
And that's a risk thing as well, right? Is that
across regions as well,
where you've got like a word file that's getting hacked to pieces, and it's saved on someone's drive, saved on someone's
reused. But then when you do all of that, you've still got to give. I think the business will, and I'm talking on behalf of McLaren, as we know that this perhaps, but me generally as an individual, taking McLaren away as a commercial person, I would want to see a business, you've got your standard templates, but don't close yourself off to learning from the people within your team.
Yeah.
So as a business evolves, you get this, we know people move, be open to listening to new, how's it done somewhere else?
Yeah.
Because the way you're doing it isn't always the right way. It might not be wrong, but there might be a better way.
Yeah, it's constant evolution.
And if you can't find yourself in a place where everything becomes so automated, people stop thinking.
Yeah, I want to just pause on that point, right? Because as selling sealing, as I do kind of in my day job, a lot of what you will hear is, well, you can't automate that because a QS kind of needs to go through the process of learning, of getting into the detail, like all the things we've just talked about. Yeah. But to my mind, right, I agree with that principle, but manually updating procurement schedules, save as, pulling together 13 Word documents into a single PDF and going and standing by the printer is not that.
No.
But pulling a scope library on a roofing package and reading that and going, right, okay, what's different on my job? And being kind of signposted as to, you need to think about this in your spec, blah, 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 blah. That is what they should be focused on. And that is, you're actually saying, spend your time on that. Don't spend your time by the printer. Do you see what I mean?
I do, and I think that's where the systems that need to be put in place need to always be able to ask. It sounds very I'm not talking about AI and whatever, but ask the question. So, like you say there, you've got a standard template, but that template needs to encourage the QS to think and answer a question.
Yeah.
So, do I need this in the scope?
Yeah.
Rather than it just being, oh, look, here's a pre-prescribed scope of work.
Done.
So
Great,
I'm done.
I'll send out the tender.
Just send it out without even having to go and look at a drawing or read a spec. It has to be a question and answer relationship between the automation and the commercial person.
Yeah.
Or the team generally, obviously.
Yeah, and so...
And that's the point. Procurement is, as like all the things, it's a team exercise. So you have to, as a commercial person, be able to lean on your design manager, lean on your operational team members and so on.
And do you think that this, I'm going off piece there, but I'm going to ask you this because I asked someone else it. Do you think that subcontract procurement should be done by commercial team or by a procurement team?
I'm going to give you a different answer.
Oh, come on.
The procurement should be done by the project team.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you want to put that in the context of your question,
that's QSs then, I'm saying.
That's the commercial on-site team should be doing the procurement
and
of
why?
Packages.
Because they have to own it.
Well, they have to own it and deliver it, and they have to take the good and the bad out of that decision. I think buying teams or procurement teams have a place where you've got, reoccurring orders, or if a business chooses strategic to go down a labour and material split on something, some businesses do that. Then procurement buying teams, that's where their piece is. But if you're actually looking to tie together a subcontract package that involves the commercial, contractual, the delivery, the design, that has to be owned by the team. Yeah. Otherwise, not everyone does this, but there's a
jail free card.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't procure it. I've just inherited what I've been given.
There was a scope gap in the procurement. Yeah, it's a non-recoverable.
As
opposed to it being your non-recoverable, and then you think, I'm not going to have that against my name.
Which still happens today between the pre-construction and construction team, but there's better sharing of that handover of that process now between the two teams, which allows, and everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's who owns those things. And then, one of the things that is in place at McLaren is in that handover process is there's a sort of, I think, I don't know, again, not involved integrally in the day-to-day at the business now, but there's a handover process between estimating and the surveying team or the project team, that then there's a window of time where the project team are expected to interrogate, pull apart, whatever it is, look at that estimate, say I can deliver it, or highlight areas where they think
there was an error.
There is an error, but it's not about blame. It's about learning and saying, look, this is wrong. And again,
that pre-con team is already on the next tender, and they can then think about it and
learn from it as well. So it's about that learning, as well as the site team saying, right, we've got to a position where we have now taken ownership of that estimate, and it's no longer an estimating thing. It's a site deliverable thing.
And moving the conversation, kind of a few kind of concluding questions from my mind. And I know you're not a commercial director today, but what would world-class commercial leadership look like to you today?
It has to be about the people. So how good are you at identifying your talent, nurturing the talent? What can you put in place to, in part of that nurturing, to develop and learning? A good commercial lead, it's having, from the individual leader's perspective, having a good approach to how you extract and understand information. You've got to absorb a lot of information, but the better the information, the better your decisions. How do you use that information in a positive way? I'm a big believer in, as I've said throughout, everyone makes mistakes. How do you utilise those mistakes to improve learning? How do you support the individual that's made that mistake to get better? And I mean, I'm not saying we should accept failure. There's only a certain amount of leeway you can give people, but it should be about helping that person to not make that error again. And that's at every level. And if you're able to instill that and focus on the people, they will work. There's a bit cliche, but the whole management thing of being a leader is being at the front and people following
you.
Not being a boss that you're telling people what to do. And similarly, how do you keep those good people in your business? I think Richard Branson's got many quotes out there as the individual leaders, but the one I particularly come back to from him is developing people so that they're good enough to leave your business, but treating them well enough so that they don't want to. And I think that's really powerful as a leader, but as a commercial leader, is you've got to develop people and develop your replacement.
That's hard though, isn't it? Right.
Depends on what have a clear career path.
That's kind of true, yeah. Is that something that you did?
Yeah.
Did you have a clear path? Did you think, I want to do these things? Did you set like objectives for yourself to get to where you've got to?
Yes, after a certain amount of time in the industry, like you sort of go and then you suddenly think, actually, your eyes open up to what could be. And I did have an outline sort of 10-year target plan and things that I need, but nothing that was
in writing
on in Excel, obviously,
because you hate Word and you love Excel.
And actually that was one thing I did encourage in the short period I was at Paragon Interserve. I did take the commercial team and say, I want you all to have 5-year plans, and 10-year plans, and if that plan includes being in my position, I have no issue with that. And there's a double edge to that information. And this is the same in any business, as we know, as you go through the tiers of levels of management, the opportunities become less and less. So at Interserve, it was a case of, well, if I've got the team was smaller there, if there was 30 surveyors and in 5 years' time, 5 of them wanting to be commercial managers, but I've only got 3 commercial manager slots. I know as a leader, I've got a choice to make in 5 years' time. It's I need to. 2 of those are going to have to leave because they're going to have to find their own opportunity for their own career. But that gives me 5 years to plan on how I backfill those roles.
Yeah.
So
is that genuinely a
succession
thought process that you were going through?
Yeah. Always thinking about who can take my role, and I've got
who's good enough.
Who's good enough to take my role. Because, not being funny, we can be in control of that, but equally we may not be in control of it if something, God forbid, terrible happens. Yeah. So any business needs succession planning continuously, in my mind, because someone has to be able to step up. So you always need to have that eye on, and of the 4 commercial managers I had when I was the commercial director at McLaren in London, there was one that I knew if I wasn't there, he would be able to step straight in.
Did he end up stepping in?
Yes, he will. Yes, he has. Yeah. He's in a place where that will happen certainly part of his career journey. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, and so final question for you. We talked about like advice to what is world class commercial leadership. Just a final point on QSs and the commercial professionals. Your final word to them. What is your advice to up and coming QSs? And that could go all the way from like an assistant to a senior. Yeah. Like that cohort of QSs who have aspirations for leadership, whose 10-year plan ends with commercial director. What's your advice to them to make the steps on that journey?
Obviously, that does range between that cohort. Yeah. But the underlying thing, like the broken record, is understand the detail. Yeah. Go back to that. That's your foundation to anything you do. But then the hardest transition between that senior surveyor level and going into the managing surveyor, which is sort of a bit of a hybrid as is commercial manager, is the further away you get from surveying, it then becomes around truly about people and getting the best out of people and how you can stay as connected as you can to the information, to the source information, because
you are slowly getting further and
further away. Yeah. And that trust of, am I being told the right thing? Doesn't matter. You cannot rely solely on what you're told. Yeah. I learned that mistake, to be honest. I did, because and that was probably one of my learning points as a leader, was I initially went from a giving trust and having it unfortunately backfire to balancing it between giving some trust, but it had to be earned as well.
And so if you're that senior surveyor and you've kind of got some surveyors kind of maybe not direct reports, but kind of
you've got a team below you, and
what's the lesson there on trust? Like that from your mistake, for want of a better phrase, like because it's quite hard to.
It's this whole thing. I suppose it's a term that's out there, the show me thing. Yeah. So if someone makes a statement, ask them to provide you with some sort of evidence to how they've reached that decision.
World is just QSing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's all. Yeah. It is exactly that. And similarly, with your senior surveyor managing a team, empowerment. Yeah. Again, let your team make mistakes that aren't detrimental, because that's how people learn. Yeah. And how do you develop someone? I always thought my philosophy on developing and learning, as well as the leadership, the training that you get, is put them in the situation. Yeah. There's this whole thing with some of the generational, well, I'm doing a senior surveyor's job, so I should be called a senior surveyor. Well, when I was coming up, I was doing a senior surveyor's job for 6 to 8 months before I was a senior surveyor, because you have to prove you can do it. Yeah. Just because you're doing that role initially doesn't necessarily mean you are that person until you've proven you can deliver that role. So, be patient with businesses as a developing a QS, commercial person, and realise that you do have to do the role for a period before you get the benefit of being given the role and the reward that comes with it. But similarly, I'm someone that believes in if someone is delivering, performing, they should be rewarded for that. But there are businesses historically that out there that might have taken advantage of people's performance for too long, and that's where people
you can
quite
change.
Rightly they go,
would you also, final question again, this is leading another final question, would a message to that younger cohort also be stick at it, like stick at the profession? Because I do know, again, anecdotal, that some tire of the constant arguments, like the you know, in some ways,
combative.
In some ways, we've been advocating for get in the trenches, learn it, do it, few hard years, happy days. But I would say probably both of our experiences would be like, because there was a point for me certainly where I did think, I'd much rather just be doing so. I'm not sure about this, but I'm so glad that I'm still in that
world.
Because it's just once that you're at a certain point, all of a sudden there's a plethora of doors to walk through, as you're kind of showing now as well, right? Yeah,
I mean, as you say, it didn't really finish off like the question about what I do now, but that led into business change management with smaller like SMEs. I'm now doing expert witness quantum work.
All through Christmas.
All through, unfortunately. So it can lead to many avenues. Business leadership. You look around the construction industry, and a reasonably large percentage of leaders of contracting business are from a commercial background. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's leans 60-40, 70-30. It leans in the commercial favour. So that when you get into those management levels, you can go sideways and up rather than just continue up. So there's those opportunities. But construction as an industry, historically and still to today, and hopefully it will get less as we encourage that collaboration and all of those good things. But it can be a combative, for want of a better word, industry, because everyone's we're in a world where we're scrapping for margins, which make the world go round. If I would love to see the industry in a place where there is ultimate trust, I mean, it's utopia. It's not going to happen. But
have you been on a construction site?
Well, but it would be great if people could just take a few more steps towards that, where there is a level that we're all going to make X. I mean, that does start at the top. I'm going to be very perhaps controversial, but developers are on good margin, but some of that margin needs to be shared.
No,
all the way
I
down.
completely agree, mate. Yeah. That's on us as a contracting
as an industry
to say we're not having this anymore. This is nonsensical, but
there's too many variables around that. But ultimately, I would hope that the industry could become less combative. But currently, when you are in the day-to-day, as you said, there is a grind sometimes, but stick with it. It does get better. It will get better. But I think we can't lose sight of the fact that the construction industry, for all its negatives, it's a great team environment to be in. We know that the industry over other industries pays well, and that's because people appreciate that it is a hard industry to work in. So if you've got the mentality and the attitude to stick with it,